for you. But right now, I want to bring a special guest for us tonight. Tonight, we're speaking with Tom Terry, president of Eagle TV in Mongolia. Tom is the former DJ with K-Light, which is now M88. And Tom, it's good to see you. How cold is it over there?
Yeah, I'm in Mongolia, in the coldest capital city on earth, in Ulaanbaatar here, just north of China, south of Siberia, where this morning it's a brisk, minus 35.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Tom, I bet right now you're missing Albuquerque a whole lot, but I got to tell you, it's not a whole lot better here. It's pretty chilly. But, Tom, you serve as the director of Eagle TV in the remote location of Mongolia, but since you left Albuquerque, you've served in Egypt, Turkey, all over the place. In your opinion, which culture presented the most challenges for you?
Well, I think because I spent a short amount of time in the Middle East as compared to my time here in Mongolia, I think Mongolia was in some ways the most difficult. I've been here for the last 5 years. My wife and I have made basically a lifetime commitment to be in Mongolia. And Mongolian culture is very different from the United States. It's not based upon Western Christian values. At least even in a Middle Eastern or Islamic society, you do have some values that are similar. But in Mongolia, it's very, very different. So that was really a challenge to adapting to this kind of culture.
Right. Well, Tom, you've raised your family out there on the mission field in Mongolia. How big is the culture shock for them to come and visit the States from Mongolia?
Well, you know, it's not too bad, and I guess one of the things that we have difficulty with, even I have difficulty with, having been here for 5 years now, is when we go to the States, there's so much that is available to you, from, choices in the stores and the restaurants to the ease of being able to get around. I remember the first time I went back to the States after being in Mongolia for about a year or so, I had kind of forgotten how easy certain things were in America. So when I went into the stores or went to go see friends, I really felt a little bit overwhelmed. Whereas in Mongolia, you got to work a little bit more to take care of things in just your daily life. So that really was probably the biggest culture shock. And I think the second thing is the ease of communication in the United States. In the U.S., even if you're dealing with people who don't know Christ, people tend to be very much more open with their communication and their feelings. But Mongolians really aren't that way. You got to go fishing a lot to get responses from average Mongolians.
Well, right now you're broadcasting from your television station, Eagle TV. Tell us about that television station. How did a Christian television station get started in Mongolia?
Well, it happened about 15 years ago, shortly after freedom came to Mongolia. Mongolia was the second communist country in the world. And then Dr. Bill Bright from Campus Crusade for Christ had recruited a businessman from South Dakota to really find a way to introduce the gospel to this country after freedom came. And they brought the Jesus film out here, and through that process ended up meeting some Democratic politicians who cared very much about their nation's freedom. And they said, listen, we need to start a independent TV station here because without independent media, our democracy cannot survive. Will you help us? And their response was, well, if we can openly talk about Jesus on the air, then yes, we'll be glad to. Awesome. And they struck up a partnership, and that's basically how Eagle TV was born. So we have a number of hours a day where we program core discipleship, basic Christian programming. But other than that, during our normal prime time and some of our daytime hours, we are essentially sort of like a Fox News of Mongolia, providing an independent view of news and Mongolian society that it really is not offered anywhere else.
That is awesome. You're truly a light in the darkness. And The Connection is one of the TV programs that Eagle TV actually carries. So give us a quick rundown of some other programming on your station.
Well, I got to say something about Connection. I thought it was really important to have your teaching here because most of Mongolian Christianity, at least in my experience here 5 years, is really based upon prosperity gospel and word of faith movement. 3 years ago, I sent video teams into churches to try to find out what was the basic Bible knowledge of Mongolian believers. And what we came away with is about 95% of Mongolian believers at the time really didn't know the first thing about the Bible. They didn't know who David was, who Moses was, who Abraham was. They could make a profession of faith in Jesus, but they didn't know a whole lot else. So it was very important for us to have some Bible movies, to tell the Bible stories, and to be able to share core discipleship like you have on The Connection. So we do that. We do some seminary level programs, master's level theology programs from a seminary out in Florida. And we have some other Bible teaching programs that we produce here that focus on basic Christian ethics, as well as just core Bible teaching that just systematically tells the story of the Bible from beginning to end, or as we like to say here, from Genesis to Jesus.
Similar to what we're doing here, line upon line, precept upon precept. Well, what is the response that you're getting to Bible teaching in a primarily Buddhist nation?
It's really interesting. Buddhist and Mongolian society really tends to be very, very open. It's nothing like Islamic culture at all, which was my previous experience. You can talk with virtually anyone about Jesus. You can talk with them about Christ at the drop of the hat. It's not a problem. You may have to go fishing for some answers, but actually having an open discussion about Christ is not a problem here. But what happens in this culture is people tend to synchronize their Buddhism and their animism with their Christianity, so that sometimes what you have here is a version of Christianity that really may not be exactly familiar to what most U.S. Christians or even European Christians really understand. So that really is a problem and really the challenge that we work through here.
Well, you've seen some opposition from the government there as well. Give us some highlights of maybe some challenges that you faced being there in Mongolia with the government.
Well, it's really pretty light. You do have great religious freedom in Mongolia. In fact, our organization was actually involved at the outset more than 15 years ago in helping to draft the Religious Freedom Clause in the Constitution more than 15 years ago. So really we had kind of an historic role in Mongolia in helping to protect religious freedom here. Religious freedom here is part of our role, part of our freedom of speech and freedom of press. But occasionally, you'll have somebody in the government that will say something. 99% of it amounts to politicians who are just expressing their frustrations and spouting off. But you don't have anything here where they're coming to shut down the station. In fact, we've never had anything like that happen. This is really, Mongolia is really a bright spot for freedom and democracy in all of Asia. And Eagle TV is part of that because we're the only local Christian television station from the border of Eastern Europe to the Sea of Japan.
Well, praise God for that. Tom, it sounds like God is truly blessed and is continuing to bless the work that your team is doing there. But the ministry in Mongolia is more than just running a TV station. So, Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about the other outreaches that you're involved in within Mongolia besides television?
Oh, there are so many things we're doing. You know, TV is our the most important part of our ministry. Our ministry programs, which do discipleship and training, are viewed 288,000 times a month. So that is obviously the most important work that we do. But we really wanted to extend the influence of our media strategy throughout the rest of the country instead of just the capital city. So we took our Bible movies, these movies that were made by Ted Turner, of all people, back in the 1990s, and we used them to do Bible storytelling in the countryside. So we'll go out to these countryside communities, and 300, 400, even up to 1,000 people will show up. They'll watch a Bible movie, and then we do a Bible study to tie the main character of the Bible movie, Abraham, Joseph, Moses, whoever it is. We tie that person into who is Jesus, what did he do, why did he do it, and what should my response be? And we'll be in communities anywhere from 10, 14 days going from Genesis to Jesus. And the results are phenomenal. In fact, this last summer, we even had a situation where our equipment literally burned up, and we weren't able to show movies and do the Bible studies, and people were so angry that they started to pick up their chairs and threaten to throw them at our guys who were doing the presentation. I mean, you think about it, we hear these stories elsewhere around the world where, if you go in and tell somebody about Jesus, you're putting your life in your hands, but how many countries in the world can you go to where if you don't tell them about Jesus, you might get beat up,
Well, that sounds like a pretty great problem to have, and I'm sure a lot of churches would love to have that problem. But, Tom, let's close by getting your website address and maybe some prayer requests for your church before we begin our study through the Bible from 30,000 feet.
Well, I've got a website where I blog regularly about what goes on internally here at Eagle TV and our ministry projects around the country. That website, real easy to remember, thomasterry.com. So please take a visit and see what it is that we're doing with the ministry here in Mongolia. And I would say in terms of a prayer request, just continue to pray that Mongolians, believers and unbelievers alike, would have their hearts open to the instruction that we're providing in helping to disciple the Mongolian church so that they can fulfill their own vision of becoming a mission-sending church to the rest of the world.
Awesome. Well, Tom, it was so great to hear from you. We'll be praying for you and your ministry in Mongolia. But thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.